street. 3,000 people
Yeah,
a day.
and it was all started on National Filipino Day. That was, obviously a key moment. The idea behind this place was, why couldn't the high street be as dynamic as your social media feed? Why can't it offer, something different and culturally relevant every single time you walk down the high street, to entertain you and immerse you and captivate you and, of course, take your attention.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sphere of Success, the podcast that looks at challenge and adversity in business and how we can alchemize that to success, creativity, innovation, and all of the wonderful things that go on there, because we don't need to be anxious about things that perhaps go wrong or that happen outside of us, market forces, etc. There's huge opportunity. And today, I'm absolutely delighted. We are going to be talking about in real life shopping with an absolute expert in his field. We're going to be looking at the cure for digital fatigue in the war for attention. And as a business owner, I know it almost is like, and I'm not saying anybody is wrong in this, it's just a way that life is. You think that people have got the memory of a goldfish. Literally, we've got to be out there putting ourselves in experiences so that people can think, hey, that's different. Yeah, I want to have a look at that. And that's what today's show is going to be all about. So in real life shopping, keep that in mind. It's otherwise abbreviated, to those in the know, of IRL. And today I have with me Ollie Murray. He is the sales director of what you can see in the most amazing location, Future Stores. We're going to talk about this in a little bit, but let me give you his intro. So we spent over 22 years in the media and advertising space with a focus on out-of-home advertising, and in the know, that's OOH, and more recently, brand experiences at Future Stores. Future Stores is a next generation platform designed for immersive storytelling, real world engagement, and measurable retail impact. Based in the heart of London, it's where brand expression, content creation, and commerce coverage. Most recently, his Intel activation was honoured with a Gold Reggie Award. Welcome, Ollie. It's wonderful to have you on the show.
Great, thank you for having me.
First of all, what's a Gold Reggie Award? Love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I mean, the Reggies are slightly new to me because they're more of a retail award system, but they do cross over with kind of experiences, experiential, brand experience as well. And that was very much the kind of heart of what that particular Reggie won. What was remarkable about that was it was actually our first ever activation at the store. So this is when we launched only back in November last year. But it was a very, very kind of cutting edge activation. They pushed the limits, I think, of what Future Stores is capable of right from the get-go, which is amazing. And more importantly, it netted some incredible results for their business, outperforming Black Friday by 11%, which was ultimately what they were here to do, and netting them a sales increase versus year on year of 56%. So, all in all, it did a lot for their brand fame, but more importantly, it kind of paid for itself as well.
Well, this is amazing. And we're going to talk all about this incredibly beautiful, immersive experience in a little bit, because what you've got behind you, it just looks fabulous. I have to say, when you came on just before we went on air, everybody, I'm like, wow, it is awesome what these guys can do. So we're in a situation now, economy downturn, people are finding it difficult to make ends meet, etc. People's attention spans, as I said, we're getting less and less. I include me in this. I'm nothing special when that's regard. I scroll through, I go left, right, whatever, up, down. I'm not interested in spending long in looking at people that I could potentially buy from. What's the biggest challenge that you think people are facing in businesses with this attention span issue?
Yeah, I think I've noticed actually, this has been something which has been building throughout my career, that the switch to the kind of digital world that we kind of live and work in now, from an advertising perspective, that's fundamentally changed everything. And not necessarily in a bad way. It's just, change is inevitable. The problem is with that is sometimes people move too fast. There is, an old adage that, I think it was Adidas that famously said, we went too digital too quick. It was all about, spending lots of money on acquisition. And I think that that's what a lot of brands do. They're kind of relatively short-termist. How do we quickly reward ourselves, invest in some sort of digital clicks, see if we can get some immediate buy, and then, that will look good in the boardroom. What that actually means from a long-term brand health perspective is quite the opposite. And, Adidas, I think I'm going back a while now. It's probably back in 2015, 2016. They said, we went all in digital and forgot about, big brand building. And of course, they started investing in the top of funnel mediums. So things like out of home, things like TV, cinema. But more recently, a lot of brands now investing in real life experiences. There is a sort of significant shift from the pandemic that has given kind of particularly young people a real desire to want to connect with brands in real life. And that's, it's sort of, there is a high expectation, by the way, in terms of what they want. But, to your point, that there is so much that they're being bombarded with from a digital perspective. I'm not sure what the latest number is, but from what I read pretty recently, ADP in the pound goes on social and search. To be honest with you, majority of it between two companies. And that's sort of indicative of how, the majority of, advertising investment is going towards the sharp end of the funnel, right? The acquisition. And that's very expensive. And it's not particularly engaging, and it doesn't drive attention from your consumers when you're looking to kind of keep them for the long run, the next generation, your next generation of Renault buyers, Mercedes buyers, Pepsi buyers. It kind of does a job, but not all the job. And, ultimately, I think that is the challenge which, brands are facing. It's really difficult for the CMO of these brands in order to have that conversation, because you've got to be relatively brave to say, hey, I know that we could make some immediate revenue returns by investing in search and social. However, I want to invest in our brand for the next 10 years. And with most CMOs on a 2-year cycle, that's not often the case. It's kind of quick win, then we move on. And so that, I think, is the main challenge. However, as I said before, with consumers yearning for more in real life experiences, engagement, the smart brands are really kind of coming through on that. And actually, my example before in Adidas, they were our last brand that were in the store. Fantastic activation. And funnily enough, driving on a kind of relatively nostalgic product in the Superstar trainer, which I wore back in the 90s, and it's back with a vengeance. They're talking to a new generation of Superstar wearers, and they had over 3,000 people coming into the store each day. And that is,
Now tell me again, this is a stat which I find almost unbelievable, when people are, you see one or two people in shops in the high street, 3,000 people a day.
And they're coming in for, on average, 10 minutes. So, we talk about engagement and attention, that sort of by and large is measured in seconds, if not microseconds, really. If you're looking at a lot of the mainstream channels and social media. However, to be able to engage your new customer base for 10 minutes, it's an incredible thing. And of course, it's not just about those particular people, it's about what they do. And of course, one of the main things that we've noticed at Future Stores is we're kind of like a content engine. What people do is Adidas come in, they put on a fantastic show for the compared to the UK population, a relatively small number of individuals to come in. But of course, all those individuals share what it is that they've seen and experienced. And that's where you see then mass reach, because then millions of people see those posts that they've shared. And rather than being a kind of paid for social kind of corporate post, this is being shared by your brother or your mum or your, best friend. And so there's an authenticity to it, which means that it's probably more attention grabbing, even in its secondary form on social media. So in real life does two things. It does the captive kind of moment, which is really emotive, but more importantly, it has a very large amplification quality that is done through an authentic, sort of meaningful way versus a kind of more corporate paid social way.
You see, I love this, and it's about, it was going to be further in the conversation, but I think this is a great way now to put in this whole idea of community building, brand community building, because I love the whole thing about podcasting because it goes one to very many. And so what you're saying is, as well, from Future Store's perspective, in this immersive in real life experience, people coming in, the phones are out, they're taking videos, they're taking snapshots, and they're posting authentically from themselves to other people that they know and influencing them that way. How do you see this whole in real life shopping experience and what you do at Future Stores being able to help with a brand building exercise for the communities that the brand wants to have around the experience that it's going to get with you?
Yeah, I think I'll consistently draw upon activations that we've done because they're the real geniuses here, not me. We have a great store and a great location, but the agencies and the brands that use our location, they do it in such an incredible way that I need to give them the credit when I'm talking about these examples. Pepsi was brought to us by Grand Visual and Talent Out of Home. They had a very clear vision for what they wanted to do. They were launching their Pepsi kind of sweet treats range in the spring of this year. So if you may recall, it was kind of very pink, so cream soda flavor, kind of very Y2K, and it had a very distinct target audience they were looking to attract, which was young females. And what they did is using our location, they built it out in a way that was very, very inviting for that particular audience. It was very styled and themed to target those audiences. But rather than rely on the 100,000 people that walk past and that of those, that audience would come in, which I'm sure they would, they did a kind of very specific thing in order to drive the community, as you say it, to come to the store and make it all about them. And the way they did that was on the first day, rather than open to the public, they invited 100 influencers that are followed by that target audience to come in and create a load of content in the location, which was then shared throughout the day, followed and seen by the target audience in a kind of geolocated, i.e. Greater London capacity. And of course, the next day when we turned up, it was a bit of a shock because there was around 10,000 of these teenage girls all waiting outside the store to come in because they'd seen what these influencers had kind of suggested was going to be a, don't miss it. It's here. It's only here for a short window of time, that kind of anticipation, FOMO kind of reality. And they continued to queue for 2 hours throughout the entire week to come in. And we measure at Future Stores very, very comprehensively using real-time camera capture inside and outside the store as to who's going past, who's coming in. And we were able to obtain that, about 80 to 90% of the audience that came into the store were their target audience. And they stayed here for 26 minutes.
No.
In the subject of attention.
So they're not buying anything when they're in there?
No sales. It's all about brand affinity. It's all about share, amplification. And it just went viral. It was an incredible success. And I mean, for working in advertising for as long as I have never seen that level of engagement. It was extraordinary and really positive as well, really fun. Everyone here was just having a great time. And then you actually put it together. If you're queuing, let's say for an hour 45, and then you're in here for the best part of half an hour. That's well over 2 hours of engagement. I mean, that's like watching
And
a
you think what
movie.
they're doing while they're queuing?
Yeah,
They're
they're all
going to be on the
taking
mobiles. They're going to
videos.
be telling people where they are. They're going to be,
Yeah,
they're going to be speaking with each other. That's massive, isn't it?
it is massive. And I also was kind of anecdotally told, I won't say who it was, but one of the agencies involved, who knows a thing or two about media channel buying and trading, said that in order to obtain the attention in terms of minutes for the target audience that they were looking for on television, you would have had to spend £7 million in TV ratings in order to achieve it.
Now let's hold that figure. £7 million. Okay, it's anecdotal, but let's take this. Let's do some numbers here. £7 million for something like that on TV. Don't need to tell me the costs involved, but what would you think their saving was by doing something with you over the course of the week on that level of what they would have had to have spent to generate what they did on TV, do you reckon?
Well, you know, we're talking well over 6 million. So, you know, look, let's be frank here. You know, locations like ours, experiences and activations like ours, they don't work in a singular form. They always need to be part of an omni-channel solution. And in the case of Pepsi, you know, I'm sure that many people would have seen that particular campaign. I saw it a lot on Out of Home because that's a channel that I see a lot because I'm always out and about. Other people, you know, may have seen that on social. Obviously, you know, targeting was applied, so it depends on who you are. But, you know, they did a great job of obviously doing a national kind of spread on that particular product and that brand, but then they drove their attention for the campaign to us as the kind of nucleus of the campaign, the center of it, and then used us as almost a content studio to drive, you know, the bigger amplification without having to pay for it. And that's what's, you know, so extraordinary. Also, the number that I'm talking about does not include that amplification. So I'm only talking about, yeah, the individuals in our location. So not even the ones that went past it, which would have been another, you know, million odd.
Because they would have seen that and there's something going on in there.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then they probably would have looked around and thought about what it was. Then they've got it from that point of view. I mean, this is limitless, isn't it? When you really think about it. And also when that comes up, and that's the great thing again with podcasting, what you're doing in social media, sometimes you can look at stuff that's a little while ago that still comes up in your feed. So
yeah,
actually, I always say there's a legacy here, isn't there, from
yeah,
the point of view of, you know, it could be a few years back, but you're still getting the benefit of it because it comes up to somebody's feed. They look and they think, oh, that's interesting. Okay, the amounts might dissipate, but it's still really valuable, you know, and all of that is free of charge.
yeah, that's right.
Incredible. So somebody here might be thinking to themselves, well, I'm not the Pepsis of the world. I'm not the Adidas of the world. What kind of brands, what kind of businesses can get involved and have a very good effect once they've put this, as I say, almost like the anchor point, the pivot point of this particular marketing strategy? Can you list out sort of like the people that are interested in your bit, you know, what they're doing, the kind of sectors, maybe the
Yeah.
specialisms? Yeah.
I think, well, firstly, the automotive sector has been our most successful. So we've had 3 automotive activations to date. We launched the Renault 5 here. We also had Tesla here launching the Model Y, and they also brought in the Cybertruck, which was just a cool thing to have. And we most recently launched the Mercedes CLA in the store. Renault were so happy with their activation back in March that they have rebooked. So they're coming back in October to launch the Renault 4 and in January to launch the Renault Turbo. So it's fair to say that that industry really has kind of grabbed hold of what we do here. You know, ultimately, you could argue that we're quite disruptive. You know, the high street is what the high street is. It hasn't really changed for quite a long time. I know that it's trying to, and that there are some things happening in a really positive manner. what we are able to offer is something which is just, fast forwarded straight into the future, and plonking a brand new kind of luxury car in the middle of Oxford Street. It's just not normal. And I think that's what turns heads. And I think that's why they have seen a lot of success. So we've seen an enormous amount of test drive and, sales intent through the activations that we've had from our automotive partners. Then we've got fashion coming down the track. I think that's a big one. One of our advertisers we've got coming in this month is in fact, possibly the largest online fashion retailer. And this is interesting. Essentially going to be a digital flagship store in real life for them, whilst they solely exist at the moment online. And that gives them that kind of physical manifestation of their brand and of their products. So they will be selling from here, but more importantly, they will be kind of being able to offer, something kind of tangible for people to come and interact with, which again, given that their core target audience is a younger audience, I think that's going to make for a very interesting case study. We've also had kind of premium alcohol brands. So we had Dom Papa rum through Diageo. That was a fantastic storytelling example of how you can immerse someone in your kind of brand heritage. Their brand heritage was all about a kind of Philippines background. And what they did is they turned the store into a kind of Philippine jungle scene. And you walked through it in a linear fashion. There were actors kind of explaining to you about the heritage of the rum and all the different flavor variants and where it all came from. And you could play with it. And it was really, really fun, but really, stunning from a creative perspective. And then you were able to put liquid on lips. So that was the big objective. Can we get people to try our product? Because it doesn't matter how much social, how much, TV or online that we do, you can't try it. And that is what turns, new customers around. And of course, people came in, they tried it, they were given a flavored ice cream, they got, the opportunity to buy it. They even had a B2B room downstairs where they got their big retail partners to come down and actually do mixology classes. Very, very clever. Again, an omnichannel solution. They did lots of supporting media in order to sort of build itself around what we did here. And it was a remarkable success. From a B2B level, they were able to obtain better shelf space in the supermarkets and new contracts with the kind of big hotel groups, etc. And from a consumer level, they saw just over 10,000 people, maybe a few more, spending around 12 minutes in the store engaging with their brand. And we understand there to be around 20 million online impressions through the organic social shares that the people, provided throughout their visit to the store, which is the first time that we had actually employed
20 million.
20 million.
20 million. In how long? How long was this event? I mean, these are events, aren't they? How long was this event for? It
was 10 days back in June. And it was all started on National Filipino Day. That was, obviously a key moment. And I think that's indicative of kind of what Future Stores offers, because you don't need to be live all year or for 10 years. You can just go, no, I want that moment, that cultural, that season, that anniversary, that World Cup kickoff, whatever it is, you just buy that and then you're out. And that's what they did. And they owned that moment, and it was amazing. So look, in a long answer to your question, there's a real broad range of advertisers that we've seen coming to activate here. And that was the whole point of Future Stores. It was, the idea behind this place was, why couldn't the high street be as dynamic as your social media feed? Why can't it offer, something different and culturally relevant every single time you walk down the high street, to entertain you and immerse you and captivate you and, of course, take your attention. And, as we go forward throughout the next year, I think that we'll open up much more categories. Entertainment is a big one, which I think there's a lot of talk about activating here. We have Hasbro, Disney, Marvel live next week with a Spider-Man campaign. I think that's going to be phenomenal. It's a real community play. They've got these trading cards through Magic of the Gathering. They have a huge community, a very tight one as well. And there's already a lot of noise in that community about, coming to this location. So I think that we'll see a really interesting case study from that one alone.
Wow. Well, we've just lost your visual there, but it just goes to show how immersive that was. I mean, it just phenomenal what you can do. I'm almost thinking that the pop stars and things like that, they could have a whole other revenue stream coming out to buy the albums and stuff with an immersive experience of when they come to the UK, or if they're abroad and they know people can't make it, to actually have something that's an immersive experience from your store. And yeah, the sky's the limit, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think the next we're also starting to hold some events at the store to sort of open up a bit more understanding about all of this, because as you said, it's quite new. There is perhaps a kind of feeling and an instinct that in real life is right. Brands seem to be kind of jumping on it, but and consumers love it. But as I said, it's been a relatively slow burn today. So what we're doing is doing sector focused events at the store in order to bring that community of brands together to talk about that, and not from us. We'll take industry experts and talk them through how it is that particular sector can do so well here. What are the learnings that we have, and what is the kind of bigger, broader kind of marketplace for those categories looking like, that therefore they need to apply to something like this. So our next one is in October for the beauty and fragrance category. So we'll be having some special guest speakers coming to do a small event in the evening at the store, where those brands will be invited to come and learn all about it, and more importantly, talk to us about what their challenges are, and us to understand a little bit more about their marketplace and what keeps them up at night, so that we continue to optimize what it is that we do here at Future Stores to better enable those brands to stand out from the crowd and grab attention.
And so what would you say, thinking about this and people thinking about it, let's let people, the reason why people perhaps are finding it difficult to make up their mind to do something like this, what would you say that perhaps some misconceptions are in the market that you think, oh, if only you knew X, Y, and Z?
That's a good question. I think there's probably a misconception that this thing's really difficult. Because it looks really impressive when it's live. And I think, I can understand why, as a marketing professional, you may come in, particularly if you're working for a brand, and go, wow, that looks expensive, or that looks difficult to do, or, does it cut through? Has it got enough volume of individuals? And so we've been trying very, very, very hard to myth bust that, because as hopefully I've kind of expressed and explained, it does cut through in a much bigger way than actually just the individuals that come to our location in situ. It has a massive application effect. Also, there are some fantastic agencies out there that have been doing this for ages, and they take a space like us, which, yes, it's a bit bigger and it's a bit brighter and it's very, very digital led in terms of its setup, and they love it. They embrace it, and every single time we've had an activation, it's blown us away with how incredibly skilled these agencies are in bringing these blank spaces largely to life, to the point where the feedback I love the most is whenever I see a consumer on the high street or someone that I'm inviting to the store, activation to activation, going, oh my god, this place is like, is this the same place? It's completely, it's not about us. It's completely owned by that particular brand, taken over, so that there is no kind of misunderstanding as to who's in town that particular week. It is either Pepsi, or it is Diageo, or it's Disney, Marvel. It you feel it, and I think that's testament to the agency and the partners that we've worked with today, because They do that. They make that happen. We merely kind of here to help them and hold their hand throughout the experience. So, brands need to have confidence that there are some incredible agencies out there that can make this happen. And of course, there are increasingly incredible venues that they can deliver this in incredible locations. So, it's not a nice to have anymore. I think it's an intrinsic part of their omnichannel plan.
Agreed. And I think that, that the more this becomes mainstream, it's like anything, and this will say about podcasting as well, is that we all fled to websites back in the day. We all went on to various social media platforms. This is something I think that has a legacy to it as well, because again, people will remember this as an experience, as an event that they went to, and they will talk about it with their family and friends and colleagues. It's not something where somebody goes away and goes, oh, well, that was nice, and off I go.
Yeah.
In today's world, this is something to be memorable and actually know that when they went there, they had that time, 12 and a half minutes long. I went to something in London, we discussed it, didn't we, where there's all that fine art that goes around. It's not just the novelty for this, I think, it's actually getting people on a deeper level. It's actually making them feel a part of that brand and feel that loyalty and that it is for them.
Yes.
Do you get that from when you're talking to the people that come to the event, the attendees? What's the type of feedback that they're saying about it?
Yeah, I mean, we actually, so when brands come to the store, I mentioned that we have quite a lot of data and analytics built into the location, which obviously monitors in real time the people going past the store, so we can sort of understand potentially who's viewing the media side of it, which would of course be the screens. But more importantly, of course, who are we capturing from the high street, and what are they doing when they come in? How long are they spending here, and what's the kind of heat map of where they go? When the activation's complete, we couple a kind of review of that boiled down as to what did that look like, plus the social listening element that I mentioned, plus a qualitative survey. So we kind of interview around 30 people a day that come into the store. And throughout a week, we're able to build a really robust picture of how people felt about the activation. So who came in, how many, but what did they feel about it? And what do they feel about the brand? And what do they feel about the product? And that has been, I think, possibly one of the most positive things that we've done. We've started including essentially what is an NPS score. So for those that don't know, a net promoter score, which is what a lot of brands use in order to ultimately check their sort of brand love. It's a gauge of brand love. And we see a significant increase on that for people that have come into the store versus the brand's average. And more importantly, the intent to buy is very high. I mean, I'm talking with premium brands. So Mercedes CLA, when they were in here, the intent to buy was 85% of the individuals that left.
Whoa, 85%. And if they went into, let's say somebody went into the showroom, I wonder with the actual cars there, I wonder if that would be higher or lower than 85%.
The actual cars were here.
Okay, so they were in there as well as what was going on around them.
Yeah. That's the beauty of the store, is that you can put a car on Oxford Street. In fact, we had 2 cars in here. For Renault, we had 4. So, that allows people to not have to go to a dealer, out of town in an industrial estate. They can wander through on their lunch break or shopping in the afternoon, jump in the car, have a look, have a play, do the configurator, play on a Formula One racing sim, take a freebie, and off you go. And of course, the number of test drives that these activations are driving is huge. I mean, Renault was 60 test drives a day that they were taking, and Tesla, throughout the 9 days they were here, was 2,352. So, pushing from brand love to action is also a huge output, and something which I think that we're all a bit surprised about, because if I'm honest, very rarely does a brand come in here going, I want to sell the thing. They're coming in here saying, I want to create brand awareness. I want people to kind of feel the brand, love the brand, experience it. and then they go, oh my God, we just walked away with 2,500 sales inquiries. It's like, great.
And that is phenomenal, isn't it? Because this just proves how people, if they're immersed in this whole thing, suddenly become part of it, and they see themselves owning one. They see themselves having it on their driveway or in their garage. They see themselves going to the supermarket in it, whatever it is, going to work in it, because they're immersed in this whole experience and they feel a complete part of it. Psychologically, it's amazing, obviously, what you're doing. There must be a whole thing around the psychology element of
Yeah.
how people react to that kind of immersive experience.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I read a lot of things. There's some great articles by some much brighter people than me that clearly indicate that, you know, this type of interaction with brands is very much favoured. It tends to be mostly positive, um, and you know there is therefore a desire from both consumer and brand to do more of it. Um, what we're trying to do here is make that a turnkey solution. You know, it doesn't have to be heavy lifting. You know, I mentioned to you before, you know, what could be a barrier. You know, we are trying to limit those barriers, reduce them almost entirely. So we've done all the hard work. We've built, you know, 400 meters square screen. We've got a 235-meter square kind of stage. It's not a store, it's a stage that you can just place your product on, bring your brand to, tell your story. This is really all about storytelling, but without having to sort of do too much hard work. You know, I'd like to think that we've done that for you, and therefore all you need to do is be creative, and that's what I'm saying that the fantastic agency partners that we've worked with have proven to do, and that is why these things have been successful, because of the, you know, that work that they've been able to deliver.
Amazing. And what next for future stores?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because we are launching our next store, which is going to be in New York City. It's on 6th Avenue, number 1251, which for those of you that know New York particularly well would recognize as the location which is directly opposite the Rockefeller Center, kind of diagonally facing Radio City. So, you know, very much on that very busy kind of corridor that goes from Fifth Avenue down to Times Square, which has got a you know, incredible footfall. It's very similar to what we have on Oxford Street. It's around 65 million people per year, and obviously a very key business district, like our location here. You know, majority domestic sort of, you know, workers, professional audience, which I think for a lot of brands is really important. They want to take, you know, investing in the pounds that they have of the people that live in that particular neighborhood. But obviously also, you know, a large number of tourists at particular times of the year. It launches in November. Intel, I think I mentioned them before. They are here in London. They are also in New York for the month of November, as well as 2 pop-ups that we're doing for them in Munich and Paris. So that will be our launch partner, but then both London and New York are available from December, which, funnily enough, December happens to be the busiest footfall for New York for the year. So any brands that then come after New York, the Intel activation will benefit from having a really, really high audience number passing the location. So that's a big deal for us. You know, this was not a small investment, what we did in London, but we're very kind of humbled by the kind of lean in that we've had from the industry and obviously from brands, which has meant that we've got the kind of courage to be able to go forward and do this all again in another country. But, you know, I think London, New York, kind of similar in terms of, you know, real advertising hubs, you know, centers for excellence and creativity. And we feel confident that, you know, like we've seen with fantastic brands and agencies, you know, making use of our space in London to a really, really high level, we will see exactly the same in New York. Obviously, it's America, so the store is bigger, and it will have, you know, an enormous, you know, creative canvas for people to be able to utilize. So I very much hope that, you know, the next time that we're talking, I'm able to express, you know, some great results as to what our store's done over the pond, as well as, you know, how it's worked, you know, in sync with our London location as well.
Wow, it's such an exciting time, and I think you've got it just when the market's right, and people will start to build on the success and see this for what it is, which is a phenomenal opportunity, as you say. Omni-channel, this is the hub, this is what people need to get right, and then have everything else feeding off it, and then you're going to explode that brand community. I think this is just amazing and just the first steps as well. So yes, absolutely. I'd love to see how this all goes in 6 months, a year's time. Absolutely brilliant. And lastly, how can people get in touch with you, Ollie?
Yes, so probably just easier to email me directly if you're interested, if you've got questions. My email is oli.m@futurestores.com. We obviously have a website as well. You're welcome to browse that, and there's a web form as well if you feel more comfortable getting in touch with us. Obviously, what we've always say is seeing is believing at Future Stores. We say what we preach, and we do what we preach, I should say. And we invite brands and agencies to come and see our location, because it does so much more than a few videos or a few slides on a presentation. So anyone that's interested to come and have a look, give me a call, and you can come and have a look around.
Absolutely fantastic. I love this innovation. Your passion for what you do just, oh, it comes across like you wouldn't believe. So everybody do be in touch with Ollie, because, even to attend an event, have a chat with him, see what's coming up, but especially for those marketing agencies as well, looking for venues like Ollie's and those brilliant brands that are absolutely nailing it. I can absolutely say, yeah, be in touch with Ollie, because this is the way forward. This is the future, and it's working superbly well. So, and it doesn't happen by accident. There's a load of good people working on it as well, including Ollie himself. So thank you, Ollie. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure to have you on the Sphere of Success podcast.
Great. Thank you very much. It's been an honor.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. And to everybody listening, thanks as well. Share this, because again, this is something I think that everybody needs to see. Either way, you're going to attend an event or actually the one that's hosting it. I think that this is a phenomenal opportunity. It's changing the way that we shop, and it's just the first steps forward with this. There's a lot more to come. So until next time, be successful, like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you all again very soon. Bye now.